Hello, you guys. I just wanted to show you a project that I had. I did these countertops a couple years ago, and now I'm just going back trying to fix some of the spots that are messed up. And so it's basically a mix of this apple barrel warm bluff and classic caramel. I'm using that to try to go back in and fill in the spots. It's kind of hard to, separate it and, blend it in so you know where you're going to stop at. But you sand it first, then you go back in and do the blending. Once it dries, or once it dries, you can go back and put another coat. And once you're satisfied with the color, the thickness, you go back and sand it. Then your last step is going to be to put on the polyurethane. I use the high gloss polyurethane because I like it shiny. But I'm just fixing some of the spots that were messed up. And you just take those two paints. I basically just took it and put it in the plate and mixed them together to get that color to look like it would match. And it came up to a good enough match, so that's what I'm using. And I'll show you the end result. I wanted to show you guys how I apply the paint. So I just go here and I just dab it. The first time that I did it, I did roll the paint on with a sponge roller. But now I'm just trying to fill in these little areas. So I'm just taking this paint and trying to pretty much blend it in so that it doesn't look so obvious that it was repaired. And like I was saying before, I will have to go back over it most likely with some more paint. I am just getting my surface prepared before I sand it and put the polyurethane on it to seal it. You do have to put the polyurethane on it to seal it. If you do not use the polyurethane to seal it, you will take the paint off of your cabinet. Anything could take the paint off if you don't put something on to seal it. So basically, you just sand down your area. You're going to take the I'm sorry, I forgot the name of it. The base piece that you put down, the blocker, the stain blocker. You're going to take that, if it's Kilts or whatever brand that you use, take that, the stain blocker. You're going to put that down first. I originally took the stain blocker, the Kilts, and mixed it with my base color paint. Whatever color that you want to do, so that you don't have so many steps. You could just mix it with your base paint. That way you don't have to keep going over it so many times. And so I'm just going back and filling in. I wanted to show you guys what I was talking about earlier. So you see how that spot right there, if you can see through that spot. You can see that there is dark paint up under there. So that's one of the areas that you want to go back to and you want to put more paint on, because you don't want to be able to see through that. So you want to make sure that you get that dark enough so that it's like it blends in. You see that spot right there? So I'm just going to come back and put more paint on there so that you don't see that spot. Hello again, everyone. I forgot to show you the part where I went to put the colors on, the brown and black. So I just used a little sponge, and these are the colors that I used. I used just an apple barrel chocolate, and that's satin, and then the apple barrel black, which is a matte. And I just take like a plastic plate. You can use whatever you want to use, but I take a plastic plate, put a little bit of the paint in there, you dab it, and then you keep dabbing it until it gets light enough, because if it's too thick, it will smear. So you want to dab it till it gets light enough. And then what you're going to do is you're going to just go over the paint and you're going to do like this, like you're stamping it in certain places. And you see here, I've already went in and filled in those colors. And some of it is darker than the other spots. But when you put the polyurethane on it, it will lighten up. And I have some spots that I need to fix. When I went in to sand it, you can see I got some little white spots. So I'm going to go in there and try to put some of the base paint back in there. This is not the type of brush that I need. As you can see, it's a little too thick for what I'm trying to do. But I'm going to try to make it work. And I'm just go ahead and try to get into those little spots. I have too much paint on here. I need the little fine tip one paintbrush, but I don't have it. So I'm just going to go in here and just these little spots that are white. I'm just going to come in here and dab it. And then I might have to go back over it with the other color paint. But I'd rather go back over it than to have these little white spots. You don't want that, because then it looks like it's coming off before you even seal it. So the sanding took some of the paint off. And then this time I'll be able to show you how I do the dabbing so that you could see. I'm just going to try to get in those spots, create a big enough space that I can dab. It's kind of hard if you're trying to go in a little space. It's really hard for you to come back in and put that paint on there. So I'm just going to try to get back in there. It's going to probably create a whole nother space for me, but I'd rather for it to be right than for it not to be right. So I'm just going to keep doing it until it gets the way I want it to be. And then once I come back, I'm going to try to remember that I didn't show you the video with the dabbing. So I'm just going to video me putting that black and brown paint on there so that you can see what steps I take to put that paint on there. So I have a lot of white spots, and I don't want it to be white like that. So I have to go back and start the process again. That's what happens. It's easier when you're doing it complete versus when you're just fixing certain spots. Is harder. So I'll come back once I start with the black and brown paint. Hello everyone. I wanted to show you the process of me doing the dabbing because I didn't show you the process of going back over the countertop with the black and brown that I use. And I forgot to mention in the video, the reason why the paint is coming back off, because when I originally did the countertop from the beginning, I used the kilts and then I painted over the kilt. So this right here where I'm doing, where I am going and filling in, I'm not using any kilt. So that's probably why the paint is coming back off. I don't want to have to use kilts to do just this touch up. So I'm going to probably not sand it, and that'll stop the paint from coming off, and just go back over it with the polyurethane. So this is the brown paint I have here, and I'm going to show you what I'm talking about with the dabbing. So I'm going to take the sponge here, and I'm just going to go like this so it can get lighter, because if it's too dark, it'll just smear up the area. So let's try the first one. Just pounce it very lightly, because I don't want too much of it, because it creates a very dark area. So, and that's what makes it so dark. So I'm just going to barely put it on there. can see here, I'm just lightly pouncing over. And it's just to get a coat on there. And I'll come back and show you with the black. So I have the black here. I'm just going to do the same thing with the black. I didn't want to wash the sponge off because if I wash the sponge off, then I have to wait till later to do the stamping because it will smear the paint. So I'm just going to try to dab it in a different area from where I did the brown. And it's just the same thing. I'm just going to stamp it like that to get a lighter view of it, lighter color. So, and I'm going to go in and try to do the same thing that I did, which that is not working. Let's see. Maybe it's too much paint. You're just basically going in and filling in the spots. Try to do it lighter so that it won't be so dark and look so obvious that you have went over it. That was not the reason that I went back, but I'm glad I did go back because it's lighter now. The first time it was darker, so you really could see that I had made corrections on the countertop, like this side here, even though it's going to lighten up once I do the polyurethane. So that's all I'm doing, you guys. It's just going back over it, trying to add in those colors that I wanted to add in. So you can see here, that's the spot that I just did. And it almost matches the first one identically. So that is good. The other side will be a little darker, but that's fine because once you put the polyurethane on it, it'll look a little bit lighter. And it'll just look like the regular granite, how they have different areas in it. It just look like a different area, darker area. So I'm just going to finish it. But there you go, guys. You would just, first, you would put down your kilts. Then you would go back and paint over your kilts. Or you could take your paint color and add it into your kilts. So you could do either of the two if you don't want to complete as many steps. But you can put down the kilts first, paint it, let it dry. You're going to need to sand it so that you can get any rough spots off of it. You can put another coat on it with the paint. And this is your base paint. Put another coat on it, sand that, make sure you have a smooth surface. Once you get done putting down your base coat of paint, that's when you're going to go back over and stamp it like I did. You're going to go and stamp it with whatever colors that you want to use. Once you get all of your colors on there that you want to use from the stamping, you will then sand that part down so you won't have any hard parts or rough parts on your counter. Then you can seal it with polyurethane. You can actually use epoxy if you want to. Epoxy is just more expensive. And it's a little bit harder to deal with. You would have, you have to definitely cover your areas really good with using polyurethane. I mean, not polyurethane, I'm sorry, epoxy. But polyurethane is a little bit easier. I don't think it protects the surface as good as epoxy, but it works because I did this countertop a couple years ago, so it works pretty good. There you go, guys. Leave any comments or questions you might have as far as for this video. See you the next time.